I'm going to talk about the whole philosophy towards money in a second, but just before we go into that, you, at the age of 16, you were struck by some illness that basically meant that you had to miss some time off school, end up without qualifications because that's... But in some ways, do you think those early years with you going and helping your father's business and help turn that around, were they important for you in terms of building the foundation for you? Did you learn any sort of warrior-style business lessons, you think, back then?
Well, not really. I mean, let's take the accountancy thing. Now, I got articled to an accountant's. Now, I got articled without any exams. And the reason I got it is I bluffed it. I bluffed it. I mean, who checked then? Who checks today? If you go for an interview tomorrow, are they really going to check up on all the detail you've offered? They look at you and they think, give him the job. You qualify, give him the job. People are too lazy to go down the extra mile. That's today. Now, if you go back all those years, no chance. So I just invented whatever qualifications I needed to go for what I wanted to do. And the reason I did it was because I was aware that everything was about accounts. Everything's about numbers. It's all a numbers game. And I thought I wasn't that great at numbers. I wasn't the biggest dummy in the room, but you know, it wasn't my preferred choice, but I just knew there was something there I had to go and investigate. So I became articled during that 2-year period, and in a way it was quite a good foundation because we did it all by hand, and all the addition, all the bank reconciliations, all that to be done. We'd be there till 9 o'clock at night looking for 10p, you know, but it was a great discipline. And it kind of gave me a bit of perspective on what profit means and how this whole thing works. I had a good grasp of that, you know. And I do think people need to have a good grasp of, you know, how much a profit you need to make and what the costs are. So I've always been a weekly person, you know, because I can never quite make the adjustment between 12 months, i.e. 48 weeks, and 52 weeks. We've dropped 4 weeks here, and I couldn't quite work that one out. So I just do week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. So that's how I do it. So if I say to you that we're 22% up this year and last year, because week 1 was January, we're now in week 20 odd, right? And so that is how I do my sums. But it's, once I compare like with like, I'm getting the right message.
So I suppose that would your advice then be for anyone that's sort of, you know, thinking about setting up their own business to actually spend a bit of time wherever they are, understanding accounts, because cash is king, cash keeps you in business, keeps your business running, to have some...
What they need to do is, they need to sit down and just write down all the expenses. And you just take the electricity bill and divide by 52. And you do that right the way down, all the ingredient parts, rent, rate, light, heat, stationery, advertising, just put it all the way down. And then see for yourself that Monday morning, this is what we've got to achieve. So you know these are your costs Monday morning. So by the end of that week, that's what you've got to have overcome. You've got to have made enough money to pay for that. And it's a very simple discipline. It's not complicated. Anyone can do it. You know, and sometimes, you know, the people mystify the whole process. They make it, you know, if you look at the professions, like solicitors and accountants and people like that, you know, they're famous for mystifying the whole thing. You know, you can't do this because it's very complicated. But it's not complicated, and you can do it. And don't let it, you know, don't let it be a barrier to you, you know. And always remember, solicitors and accountants work for you. You don't work for them, right? If you don't pay them, they don't work for you. So it's a built-in service, like any other service. You know? So sometimes people say to me, my accountant says, you know, well, that's fine, but have you checked up on it? Do you have a point of view? Do you think it's best for you? You know, and where's his swimming pool in his Bentley? You know? So I tend to be, you know, slightly reticent about taking advice unless I'm happy with it. And I do think that, you know, the days of the accountant and solicitor being all dominant, right, are over. We're free-thinking people now. We'll let you know whether we agree with you.
So it's because Max Clifford, the guy we interviewed, the famous PR guy, as you know, he was saying the one thing that he believes, you've got to back your own judgment. And it goes to what you were saying earlier about having confidence in yourself.
You could build that up, you know. I mean, it doesn't happen overnight, but it is something that you could be aware of. You know, when I was young, coming from, you know, a very good family, I feel I had too much respect at times. Do you understand?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, and you can overdo respect. Where are you in this equation, if you understand? You know? You're looking up these people. but don't look up to them. They're fine, but don't look up to them. You know, they're okay, but, you know, look up to yourself and just say, you know what, I like him, he's good, but, you know, I'll be there. I'm on track. You know, and sometimes we do that, and I feel that I've been guilty of that, selling myself short, if you like. You know? And I think people do that, and I try and encourage them. You know, don't go there. Have some confidence. You know, there's nothing special about these people. They've just read a different book to you.
Yeah, so on an equal footing, some people have got greater strengths at the moment that you can model as well, but you've also got greater strengths than they have. There's no one.
Yeah, we all bring something to the table. Not, you know, it's not everything, but the mix requires lots of different ingredient parts, and most people have got a lot of those parts. Yeah. Most people have got what it takes, but they've got to, like when I came, after I'd done my, you know, youthfulness, I decided to take life seriously. I decided to be ambitious. Yeah. And it just, I clicked into it, and it just, you know, it worked for me because I wanted it.
Love it.
I wanted it. And it was a single-minded ambition. And I'm on track now because as it grows, I've had my sons in the business, which is every father's dream and a wonderful, wonderful moment for me. And that has given me so much encouragement. You know, I'm not living in a vacuum. I'm living in a family I've got 4 grandsons. And, you know, the whole thing is like a dynasty. My nephew works for me and my niece works for me. And it's almost a rite of passage that family members can come and work for Addison Lee and disappear or stay or whatever they do. Yeah, because it just makes it, you know, it makes it more worthwhile for me.
Mm. Well, and understand as well, there's not been a bad word said between you and your...
Never. No, never. I mean, I'm always aware that that is what people say. So I set out, we all set out, you know, we have an understanding that we'll never, ever do that. We had a meeting once and it got a bit heated, and I got up at the seat, I said, walked round to my son and gave him a big kiss. I said, son, always remember, we never argue. And I sat back down. All the people in the room were like this. What on earth happened there? Yeah. But it's just keeping us on track.
Excellent. I guess they know who's boss, though, right? Who's dad and who's boss?
Yeah, you know, but your dad's your dad. You know, listen, we'll look up to our dads, you know. I mean, it's the way of the world. I wouldn't disrespect my father. He was my dad. And, you know, and when things went wrong for him, I tried my best to help him. And I like to think that I made my contribution. But, you know, the special person in your life is your dad.
Very true. So can I just ask, if you, we were talking about there about sort of, you know, somebody should, if they've got the ambition, they should probably set off and they should give it a go if they've got the ambition. But then sort of one piece of advice for, I mean, you've been through it, you've built this phenomenal business. You know, just if you go and type in John Griffin into YouTube, you can see some of the phenomenal places you live. I mean, you've got great wealth. What one piece of advice would you give to entrepreneurs that are thinking about, yeah, I'm going to go and give that a go? What advice would you give them, sort of 1 or 2 top pieces?
Well, I'd advise them to do something they're interested in. Don't pick something you don't particularly like. We all have preferences, you know, to things that we like. It could be music, it could be literature, it could be building. You know, there's things in your life that interest you. I believe that people are successful. It's the easiest path to success if you enjoy what you're doing, whether it's painting, whether it's stamp collecting, whatever area you might say, you know, if you can make a career out of something you enjoy, you'll do well. If you go down a path of something that you think is going to make money, but you don't particularly enjoy it, yeah, it isn't going to happen. So it's very important. You've got to ask yourself, who am I? What turns me on? What do I think I can do best? What would I enjoy doing? You know? And you know, it isn't about making millions either. You know, a person who enjoys their work is a millionaire. I believe that, you know, because you can't, it's not for sale. And there are people out there who just enjoy what they do. And I look at them and I think, you know, well done to you. You know, I've met nurses and doctors and lawyers. They actually enjoy their work. And it is the first port of call. My nephew, I'll tell you a little story. My nephew worked for a building company. And in the building company, which was up in East Anglia, he one day asked to stay at my house because they had a contract in the Regent's Park Canal. He came to my house, I watched him work, I sat him down. One evening I said, Peter, you will never make money as a builder. It is not your thing. You're better off to stay in bed. Anyway, that's my advice. I said that. I'm glad I said it. And that's the end of the conversation. The next day, he came in and said, that's it, I packed up my job, which was a bit of a deep breath moment for me. Anyway, I thought I did say it. So then he asked me, what should he do next? So I thought for a couple of weeks. I said, look, relax for a couple of weeks, I'll come back to you. 2 weeks later, I said, right, now go and sell double glazing, door to door. Now, the reason I said that was he wasn't the best communicator, and I wanted to build up his communication skills, a very important ingredient in success. So he went out, sold double glazing. Some months later, I received a phone call from his boss. I introduced myself, and I said, how's he doing? He said, well, he's doing very well, and I'm thinking of putting him in charge of one of my shops. So I said, right. When he came home that night, I said, Peter, end of double glazing, you now work for me. So he came to work for Addison Lee. People said, who is he? What's he do? What's he know? He's never driven a minicab. He knows nothing about the business. I said, that's it. He's good at things, and good is good, which is one of my philosophies. So I left him to it. And then I went on holiday, and when I came back from holiday, we had a system, a telephone system, which was called a key and lamp system. And it used to be used by the police and the ambulance and people like that. But it was out of commission. In other words, it was no longer manufactured. So all had cupboards full of spare parts, but nobody could actually mend the phone, however many spare parts we had. When I came back from a holiday, the place was like a Christmas tree. Every bulb was lit up, everything was working perfectly. So I said, who did this? And they said, Peter. So I looked at Peter, who I've never, ever seen any talent for electrics. So I got Peter into doing more of that type of work. And it coincided, this is about 17 or 18 years ago now, it coincided with us going down the computerized route, the IT route. So I got him to look into it for me. Today, Peter writes articles in all the magazines. He has his face on the cover of Computer Weekly. He's the man. And behind Addison Lee is Peter, who has, with us, with all of us, but the team leader that's driven the whole IT thing. And just, that's a bloke who's, he's fulfilled his dream and he loves it. It's what he enjoys doing. Now, he's so good at it because he loves it. That's where, that's where it comes from. So, and he's behind a great deal of the stuff that we're doing.